with the first pick in the NFL draft.
Hello and welcome to the Franchise Tag Draft Show. Adam, we are back with our top 10s for the 2025 draft. We are doing the quarterbacks tonight. This quarterback class isn't the strongest we've seen in recent years. It's nowhere near the level of last year. Maybe only two solid prospects and a lot of maybes after that. A lot of backups in our top 10, I think.
Yes, I was listening intently to what you were going to come out and say there. Two solid guys. I think that's probably a very nice way of putting it. Yeah, it's not great. It kind of, in a way, it makes the draft a lot more interesting because when you don't have a load of quarterbacks, it's almost like the media focuses on everyone else. Whereas for when you do have, as we had last year, I'd say we had three, didn't we, really? Like three guys last year who were like, these guys are definitely top three. And we knew that from quite a long way out. Whereas for this year, it's a little bit like, we don't even know if a quarterback is going to go number one. So it is, I think it makes it more interesting, but yeah, they're okay. Some of them.
I think the interesting thing to take away from it is last year, a lot of people had Bo Nix as not round one worthy. A lot of people said, we think he's round two. His skill set isn't like elite like all the others, but there was a team that fell in love with him and they wanted him and it fit their scheme. So they took him where they did. And he was arguably one of the best ones of that class in terms of production of what he actually did in his first season. So, we can't always go, they're not quite good enough, because there is this people that surprise you once they get to the NFL and produce above and beyond what they might have achieved at college.
Yeah, I think that's fair, but I suppose it was more just that thing where, although the likes of Bo Nix, some people didn't have him as first round, and that's probably a fair assessment. I think the majority felt that he was capable and he was a first round pick. And I mean, we had him, didn't we, as one that we thought would be first round. So yeah, I mean, look, you're not going to get it every year. You're not going to get amazing quarterbacks every year. It just doesn't happen. And, you look at the way that the class is this year, and it's just, like you say, you feel like a lot of them are going to be backups. And then next year, again, we've got like an amazing class that's meant to be coming out next year. So I think not only is it interesting for the draft itself, it's interesting to see how the teams decide to value these guys when it actually comes to the draft itself, because there is going to be that sort of ability, if they want to go, well, actually, I can go and trade for Matthew Stafford. I can go and get Justin Fields. I can get Jameis Winston. I can get Aaron Rodgers for 1 year. And then we can get or two and then get our guy and have him sit for a year if you want to. So, yeah, it's an interesting class for that reason.
Yeah, not many prospects that we think are elite, but lots of quarterback needy teams this year.
Yeah,
probably 5 or 6 quarterback needy teams. But we'll jump right into it and we'll start with our number 10 prospect. So let's get that. And our number 10 is Curtis Rourke from Indiana. He is 24 years old, so he's an older prospect. A lot of these guys, although we'll go through their ages, they're a lot younger. What we are seeing now is people are returning back to college a lot more. They get the NIL deals. So there's a lot more experience. There's none of these raw guys that we've seen in the past where they've only been in 1 year and come out. So, 24 years old, 6'5", 231 pounds. Last year, he had 3,042 yards, 29 touchdowns, 5 interceptions. He had an absolutely incredible year last year. Qualified for the playoffs, managed to take his team. He was the heart of that team. Adam, what did you see on the tape when you looked at Curtis Rourke?
Yeah, so I think the main thing to say about Rourke is he's clearly very much a pocket passer. That's his game. He's got pretty sound fundamentals, and he's not going to be someone who spends much time moving out of the pocket. It's like that's his main sort of the main thing that he does. I think he's got a pretty decent arm from what I could see. He's got decent touch and ball placement. I think some of them throws that he's made are quite nice, and he looks decent for that reason. I actually think he's like, not only does he is he like a true pocket passer, but he really does sort of command the area very well. And I think that's something that you don't see as much now. It's like, it feels like you're getting players that are maybe a bit more willing to sort of like first read, not there, run. That like where they get scared, but he's very much willing to stay. He's quite a tough player. I think he's a very sort of like, he's willing to take the hit. He's willing to sit in there longer, and he will really, he will be a decent backup because of that, because he has that potential to do that. The negatives for him, really, I feel like he doesn't really sense the sack very well. I feel like he kind of like, as great as it is that he's willing to stay in there, he doesn't feel it coming a lot of the time, and so he does get hit quite a bit. Obviously, as I just said, he's a pocket passer. He's not willing to go out. Athletic limitations is an issue with this guy. He is 24, so he is a little bit older than some of the other ones as well. So that's another problem for him. And he had an ACL injury that he had surgery on in January this year as well. So I feel like that's going to really knock him down. His throwing, when he is on the move, it does tend to, the fundamentals do tend to disappear a little bit. And so being able to throw on the move is something that he does struggle with. But overall, I think we're looking at a guy here who, to me, I think he's probably going to be a 6th, 7th round pick. I don't think we're looking for anything special here, but I think he has the potential to just sit, maybe be able to help a team out if they're in dire straits. I kind of had him as a bit of a Kyle Trask. That was sort of my guy that I sort of looked at him as, and just kind of that sort of pocket passer who doesn't. I know Trask does move a little bit more, but it's probably the closest that I could find for him that I felt he was. But yeah, I mean, I think, you're talking about the number 10 guy here, so you're not expecting anything amazing. But if a team needs to pick up a quarterback just for depth and as a rookie who can sit behind their number 1 guy, then he's probably not the worst person in the world to go for.
Yeah, I think if you put the tape on from him last year and you just randomly picked games, you'd think he was like, well, he was absolutely phenomenal last year. He was great, but you're going to see a lot of that. But I think when you deep dive into it and you handpick the games and go, well, what their strength of schedule wasn't great. A lot of people mentioned that in their big run last year. But if you look at the Notre Dame game and the Ohio game, when defenses are really, really good, he tended to struggle a little bit because, I'd say he was great at reading the defense. I'd say he was good at decision making, and he was very accurate. And they're things that I think NFL teams, at 6'5" and 231, teams are going to look at that and be like, I like this guy. I think he showed good intelligence with being able to read the defense. So they want him on the sideline with the tape, with the starting quarterback. So there's a lot to like about him as a prospect to have in your franchise. Maybe not as the starter, as you said. I think he'd be an absolutely great backup. His pocket presence, you said, like he doesn't really move out of it, commands the pocket, makes his decisions there. I put down he's old school quarterback. It's very much that sort of, what I say old school, maybe 10, 15 years ago, you were looking for this ideal type quarterback. It's just not there anymore. And like I said, when he went up against Ohio and Notre Dame, who had good defenses, that's when he started to struggle, and the decision making sort of like got a little bit worse from him. So lots to like about him. I think he's going to be a solid backup, really intelligent guy, really good season. Like I say, outside of those 2 games, the tape on him last year looks great. You say Kyle Trask. I think maybe Tanner McKee that we had last year.
Yeah.
We talked of similar. We said the same. We're saying similar things, but like I said, accuracy in reading defense and decision making. You know, he only had 5 interceptions, 29 touchdowns. He definitely knows what he's doing when he's in the pocket. So lots to like. Just with you on that. He doesn't fit the modern day NFL criteria, but definitely room for him and a position for him within the NFL.
I think he's probably going to need to go to a specific team as well. You need a team who are willing to have a quarterback like that. I think when I think of sort of quarterbacks who are maybe more pocket passers rather than willing to run, you know, maybe someone like Matthew Stafford to stick behind someone like him. And so, you know, it's like even if he was to get injured, then he could come in and that would be a logical forward step for the team. Maybe like a Derek Carr as well is someone who I kind of feel like that's where he needs to go. It's almost like he needs to go to a team who maybe doesn't want a quarterback rushing.
Yeah.
And then that kind of feels like an obvious thing for him.
I'm thinking that Detroit might be a good home for him. Hendon Hooker is potentially going to be leaving in this offseason, I believe. I think there's the opportunity for him to potentially move on. They've not really utilized him as much as they could have. So maybe this is a good, you know, he's got 2 good running backs behind him, great weapons on the outside, would fit his skill set. Really, really good O-line. I think he's got to play behind a good O-line. He can't go to a team that hasn't got a strong O-line. So I think that he would fit with the Lions well with Jared Goff. He doesn't need to, like I say, he doesn't need to. If he comes in, he's going to be able to play their playbook, isn't he?
Yeah.
We move on to our number 9, and that is Dylan Gabriel. Quarterback from Oregon, formerly of Central Florida and Oklahoma. You know, this guy's been around. He has taken the record from Bo Nix, who was at Oregon last year, as the most starts for a college quarterback now. And I think he's also taken the title of most touchdowns in college as well with 189. Again, I think there's going to be a lot of people, a lot of Oregon fans, a lot of maybe last year Big Ten and fans as well, and people who might have watched him at Oklahoma. He's succeeded everywhere he's been, and he plays really, really well. And the fact that he's been through 3 teams and he's played so well proves that this guy's a smart kid. You know, he can pick up a playbook and learn it, and then move to another team and learn a new system and a new scheme and learn it very quickly. You know, 5'11", 200 pounds. Last year, 3,857 yards, 30 touchdowns, 6 interceptions. He rushed for 149 yards and 7 touchdowns. You wouldn't think that of a guy that's 5'11" and 200 pounds, but he's good. He's smart. He's composed. He's confident. He's very, very small. So I think there's a lot of guys out there that might say, I've watched enough of him. He was great. He can do it in the NFL. And I think there's a lot of scouts out there that are going to be saying, I'm not touching a guy of this size. Adam, what do you see?
Yeah, I think what the biggest thing that I kind of agree with what you've said there is that he doesn't panic. He really does just sort of like he goes through his reads. He does that very, very well. He doesn't panic when things start to fall apart. He's very happy to start rushing. He's very happy to throw on the run, and he's actually pretty good at it as well. So that's another thing that he's good at. Escaping the pocket, throwing on the run is great. Really good timing. I think he's got decent accuracy and touch as well. So I think that he's I think he does have the potential to become something in the NFL. It feels like that he is a big step up from the previous guy that we've just spoken about. And so I think that there is a chance that something could happen here. Where there are a few red flags here. He does lack, I believe, arm strength, and what is
it's not elite,
really
is it?
no, it's not elite. What is really interesting is when he tries to something I noticed when he tries to put in that extra strength in order just to get that ball that bit further, he actually kicks his back leg out quite a bit, which is not great. So you are asking for a disaster with that. He's not very physically, he's not imposing at all. He's quite a small guy, as you said. That is a problem. I think he's a bit checked down happy, I have to say. I think he does. If he feels like once he's gone through his reads and he can't get anywhere, it is literally just chuck it to the running back as quick as possible. Yeah, I think you're probably right that there are going to be teams that are just going to go, I'm not interested in this guy. He's too small. He doesn't have the arm strength that we want. And that's a really big problem in the NFL. If you basically got both of them things going against you, it is a really big problem. I think he's a day 3 guy. I think early as well. I'm not like I wouldn't have him as like 6th, 7th round. I think you're looking at maybe sort of late 4th, early 5th is probably where I'd have him. He kind of reminds me a little bit of a kind of like a poor Bryce Young. And I'm kind of like thinking
he's not as accurate as Bryce.
So if you think of what Bryce Young was like in his rookie year, and then a bit worse than that, so it's like it's not great. However, I think he would be ideal in Miami. I think he would be a really good backup for Tua, because I can kind of see the accuracy isn't quite as good, obviously, but he is still reasonably accurate. But I could see that working, and I think that as someone who kind of, when you think of the way that the Dolphins want to play and how it's all about speed and stuff like that, I think that he could, not only could he throw the ball quickly to these guys and accurately to them, I think he could also rush a little bit as well. And so it'd be a slightly different version, because I feel like the rushing game in Miami has just disappeared because Tua can't really rush now. So yeah, I think that would be a good spot for him. Like I say, I think 4th, 5th round is probably about right for him, and he's okay. But that's probably about all he is.
Yeah. I found when watching him, he really struggled at throwing between the hashes. I don't know whether that's because of the height thing, whether that is a size thing, but if you're struggling with that at college, it's only going to get worse in the NFL. And I do feel like
he was willing to do it, though. He did keep going down that route.
That's when it started to go downhill a little bit.
Yeah.
And I think you're going to miss linebackers and safeties and things like that. And he's going to get picked off, and that's where the errors are going to come. He was a lot better at throwing it on the outside. So yeah, I do think that might put people off. I think, as I said, that might be due to his size. Again, another older prospect than you probably like as well from a guy coming in you'd expect. But I like your comp for him to go to Miami. I do think it fits there. I don't think they asked Tua. They obviously don't ask Tua to do loads with his arm, do they? So, it's all schemed there for him. So, yeah, I think...
and also, they can't bring anyone in, but based on their cap. So they've got to get someone through the draft. And someone like this later on, day 3, 4th, 5th round, I just kind of feel like it's a bit of a no-brainer to get some sort of backup.
It helps as well because they won't need to change their O-line because they're left-handed. So it means they're not going to have to swap people around. So it works very, very well. And that would be the perfect landing spot for him, I think. And I think Tua's got a bit of a chip on his shoulder because people say he's not good enough. And I think Gabriel might have that as well. So they'll work well together. They've been through a bit of adversity together, so that I do like that, and I think that would be a nice landing spot for him. I think there's a lot of people out there that do think he can make it because he has been impressive in college. I just can't see it myself with the size. I put 5'11". Yeah. There's people out there saying he's over 6 foot on some. The combine is this weekend, so we will see what he comes in at.
I must admit, when I looked at a few different websites, most of the ones I saw had him at 5'10".
5'10", smaller.
Yeah, so I think he's actually, it'll be interesting to see. I would be very surprised if he gets anywhere near 6 foot.
Right, we move on to number 8, and that is Kyle McCord, formerly of the Ohio State Buckeyes. Now at Syracuse, age 22, 6'3", 220 pounds. Last year's stats off the charts at Syracuse. He was absolutely unbelievable for some reason. 4,779 yards, 34 touchdowns, 12 interceptions, and 3 rushing touchdowns. He actually led the country in passing yards. I'll start briefly because you're going to completely contradict everything I've just said. I know you will, because it's accurate. That when he was at Ohio, when I watched loads of him, he struggled with anticipation, he struggled with progression, he struggled with decision making, and it just didn't quite fit. So, he went into the portal, he moved to Syracuse, he's had this season, and now you're going to tell me he was good at anticipation, he was good at progression, and he was good at decision making, aren't you, Adam?
Sort of. So, for me, I think, first of all, he's got a really good arm, and he's the right size. This is exactly what you want from your quarterback. Yeah, really good. The mechanics were really good. And the timing was really good. And when there was play action, he looked pretty good. And the one thing that I'm going to put this down to, because I kind of saw this coming a little bit with you saying this, was why was he more aggressive at Syracuse compared to Ohio State? And the only thing that I could boil it down to is just development. He's just developed. And what was really interesting was his average throwing time at Ohio State was 2.56 seconds, and at Syracuse it was 2.39 seconds. And that's an age in the NFL and in college football. So I can only put it down to the fact that you just gave up on him a year too early. And it's just what it is. It's just how it goes sometimes. Because let's face it, you didn't exactly replace him with a dud, did you? So it's like
you say you gave up on him too early. We went and won it the following year.
Yeah, absolutely. This is what I'm saying. It's not like you gave. You didn't bring in someone who was awful. You brought in someone who, I would say, is probably better. But it's just a case of, I think it's that thing where it's almost like he just needed another year to develop. I think that's what it boils down to. I also think he's really good against the blitz. I think that was something that we saw, that he looked really good. He does have some issues. He sits on his first read way too long. That is the one problem that he really needs to move off on quicker. He had 11 passes batted down in 2024. That's because he's sitting on the first read and they know where he's going. And that's the problem with that. He's not a fantastic athlete, really. I didn't think that was his game, really. He is very much more a pocket passer. I think he'll be another solid backup, as we've been saying that we think a lot of these guys will. I liked him, though. I thought he looked good, or at least certainly for Syracuse, he looked good. He kind of reminds me a little bit of Brock Purdy. He's got a bit of that in him, where it just kind of feels a little bit like it's not so much about the rushing game. It's very much about, he's going to need the weapons around him if he's ever going to be able to do anything. And why not the 49ers sort of thing? If they wanted a backup, they could go for him. I don't think they will, because I think I actually think he's probably going to be. What I liked him. I thought like. I think back a third round might be pushing it, but I do think he's definitely a fourth round guy and an early fourth. So, I mean, they're early fourth. I think 49ers, if they wanted to do that and have a backup there, they could go for him. But yeah, I thought he looked good, and I just think it's development, and he could keep on progressing. He has that ability about him.
Yeah, I think when you look at this list and we go through it a bit more, I think in terms of Kyle McCord as well, we talked at the start of the show, there's the two guys at the top. Then there's another two guys that people are very confident on. And then I think everybody after that, certainly everybody we're going to be speaking about up to number 4, I think you could put them in any order and it wouldn't be incorrect. There's a lot of people that have got Kyle McCord.
No, I will disagree with you on that one. There's one coming up that I don't think should be. Kyle McCord should be higher.
Yeah, I've got him lower. A lot of people have got him at number 5. I've got him lower because I can't forget everything that I watched. Being an Ohio State fan and watching all those games, I cannot forget what I saw. And I'm going, in big games, in big time, when we really needed him, it got to him and he couldn't deliver. Now, whether it's because Syracuse don't play as many of those big games like Ohio do, and it was a bit easier for him. Maybe it was because Fran Brown was a better mentor to him. And I think when you listen to Fran Brown talk about him as well, I think he really highly rated him. He was really, the guy was the number 1 recruit for quarterback in his class when he came out of high school. So, he had the hype going for him. But Fran Brown always talks about him being the second leader of that team. So he talks about him above the coaches. So it kind of went Fran Brown, Kyle McCord, the coaches, the rest of the team. So I think he trusted him and let him go and play his game. And I think maybe at Ohio, it was Ryan Day's team and offense, and you'll do it this way, and this is how we've always done it. So I think there's a bit more freedom for him at Syracuse to go out there and do more, and did more. So I think you are right. It is nice that there's progression. That's what we like to see when we're looking at prospects. So there's a lot to like about him. And I spoke about him during the season about how well he was playing, how good he was. I just can't. There's just visions of plays and decision making that I was literally, when I had hair, maybe pulling it out. I don't know. Maybe that's just the start of it. It might have been before that. But yeah, I knew we were going to be opposites on it, and I knew the stance on it because everything you said is correct about him at Syracuse. So yeah, it could be a good backup, and a lot of people are a lot higher on him. So yeah, it could be very, very interesting. We move on to the next guy. It's the guy that you probably want at number 10 on the list. You've never been a big fan of him. That is Riley Leonard, formerly of Duke, then transferred to Notre Dame. He's 22. He's 6'4". He's 216 pounds. Last year's stats, 2,861, 21 touchdowns, 8 interceptions. He also rushed for 906 yards and 17 touchdowns. I really liked him in 2022 when he was at Duke. I thought he was a really good prospect. I started talking about him then. And then 2023, injury riddled, got one to one leg, one to the other leg, foot, ankles, knees, out, just dumb. But he moved to Notre Dame and I'd say he was the leader of that team, although it was a very, very talented, great defense. He was the leader on that offense. And it really, really showed, I think, maybe the fact that he has got a bit more years behind him that was really, really good. He's a great runner. I think he's got a really good, strong arm as well. I think he's good at throwing the ball downfield. I think he's got a great quick release. I think his decision-making is good. I think there's a lot to like. I think there's teams that are going to really like what they see. Adam, is it because there isn't enough in the passing game for you that you don't like him?
What passing game? Look,
When he's
let,
hey,
let, let me let me
JJ
be nice.
McCarthy.
Let me be nice. There are positives for Riley Leonard. It's not a complete disaster. He is an elite athlete. He truly is, and he has great speed. He's very, very brave. He's always got his eyes downfield, no matter what's happening. He's always trying to do something. If he can't get the pass away, then he's very, very happy to use his legs, and he's very good at that. I think he's good when he's throwing on the move as well. I think he's definitely got that about him. So there's lots of different ways that he can attack. He's great for RPOs. I think he's got a really good deep ball. He can do all of that. However, it's just erratic. That is the word for him. It is erratic in the pocket all the time. He gets stuck on his first read. It's like if that doesn't open up, he's gone. And he is trying to play hero ball all the time. He's always trying. I mean, I'm not saying he's bad at it. I'm just saying it's like all the time, and you can't do that. And then the biggest issue with him, and this is where I just don't know who drafts him. This is the problem. I'm not saying he's going to go undrafted. I've got him as a 6th round guy. So I think someone will go.
People that like him.
Yeah, I agree. I think there will be teams out there that will come out and they'll look at all of the sort of like the athletics that he has and all of what I've said, and they'll go, yeah, okay, I'll throw a 5th round, 6th round pick on him and see what he does. So he will get drafted. But the biggest problem he has is if he ever feels any pressure, his footwork goes out the window completely. And it's just a disaster. So essentially all you need to do is just rush him all the time and he will just fall apart. So you need a very, very good O-line in order to be able to help this guy do anything. And that's the problem. That's the real issue with him. And like you said, there's not a great deal of passing, and it's just not. I don't think you can get away anymore with just having one side of this when it comes to quarterback. I think now more than ever, you need to be able to be a pocket passer and be a rushing quarterback. There's very few guys now. I mean, I know everyone's going to come out and go, well, Brady wasn't and all that sort of thing, but that was a different era to what we're in now. And even like, I know at the end, but Brady was special. So it's like, that's how come it works. Now it's very, very difficult. You need to have both sets of, in your armory. It's the only way it works. So yeah, I just don't see how this guy does anything in the NFL, to be brutally honest. I've got him as a bit of a Will Levis. It was the best I could come up with. He's got a strong arm and he likes to run, so that was about as good as it got. But yeah, I mean, I'll be more than happy to watch your New York Giants draft him in the 6th round if you want Riley Leonard.
I don't want anyone lower than outside of my top 3. I don't think you necessarily need both. I don't think you have to be that dual threat quarterback. I just think you need to be athletic and good at throwing on the move and good at getting outside the pocket. I don't think you desperately need to have that rushing up, like real high rush ending I don't
think you need to be I think you need to be good at both.
Yeah.
And he is not.
I just found it, like, if you watch it and you watch the tape and you watch how people try to scheme against him, I just feel like it's very, very hard. Maybe it's going to be easier in the NFL. They might have seen a bit more of it, but he's very hard to scheme up a game against because he has got a good arm and he is dangerous with his legs. And I found that he was quite, what's the word I'm looking for here? Quite cautious with his decision making, as in you think he, as soon as there was any pressure or anything, got the ball down and just ran? I felt like it was more, he didn't, early in games, he didn't want to risk any of those big plays in case they weren't fully on. So he played conservative, pull the ball down and rush because he could do it, and then wait later on for a bigger play to develop later in the drive and keep the drive alive a bit more. I felt it was a bit more of that rather than going, oh, I can't see anything, I'm off. I just thought it was
but either way, if he's like that in the college game, then what the hell happens in the NFL?
Well, you know, don't think he'll be a starter. I think there is NFL teams that will really love what they've seen from him and maybe fall in love with him. Could you see him at like a backup at like Baltimore or Philly or something like that?
Yeah, I mean, I suppose they're the sort of, so basically what you're saying is rushing quarterback.
Good O-lines that have got
they've got rushing, you know,
and
it's about having
wide receiver weapons on the outside that can catch those downfield balls that we were talking that he's good at.
Yeah, I mean that kind of makes sense. Them sort of teams, so it wouldn't surprise me if he ended up at them ones. But yeah, I just think as a prospect, I just don't think he's going to do anything.
Fair enough. Like I said, that they're after number 4, the list. It's anybody's guess who. You know, they're so different as well. All of them are so different in style and gameplay. Maybe not the next one that we're going to talk about. I think he's a bit different. But we'll move on to number 6. That is Will Howard of Ohio State, formerly of Kansas State. 23 years old, 6'4", 235 pounds. Last year, 4,010 yards, 35 touchdowns, 10 interceptions. And he did rush for 226 yards and 7 touchdowns. Adam, do you want to go first on him as he's my quarterback?
Yeah, I really liked him. I think he's got I think he's got lots and lots of positives. Great size, good arm strength. He's perfectly fine for that. He can throw on the run. He's got really good fundamental technique. I think that he's very good at that. One thing that I think is a real bonus for him is he actually makes NFL throws. Like the way that Ohio State was set up, it's like it's an NFL team basically is what you're doing. So I can completely get what the positivity around him. I think he recognizes coverages really well. He's a very clever guy. Operates under center, operates RPO. He was great in the playoffs. So
he was fantastic in the playoffs.
It was weird. It was that sort of thing where it's almost like he improved as the playoffs went on, which is a really big positive because it goes to show once the pressure was on, he only got better. So, I mean, there's loads. He's the right size. You know, he's everything that people are just going to go 6'4", 235 pounds. Yeah, he'd do. You know, it's like he's everything that anyone wants. He isn't much of a rusher, but he can when needed. Yeah. So it's like that's, you know, you saw that in the playoffs when it was needed, he could do it. I do feel like he needs to drive the ball more. There are a lot of them passes were sort of sail over like that, and they need he needs to drive it a little bit more. And in 2024, he did have a bit of a fumbling issue. He had 6 fumbles in 24. The only other thing really was that I feel like his change of direction could be a little bit better, but it's not really something to get too stressed out about. I think he's a day 2 guy. I really do think he's a round 3. Kind of reminds, again, already used this comp, but Will Levis again, kind of feel like there's a bit of that in him, but I feel like he's got a little bit more to him than Will Levis. It just, I think he has, I'm not saying he's going to be a starter in the NFL for 10 years, but I do feel like he has the potential to, I think there's going to be a team out there that's going to really like him is going to sit in behind someone and could become a starter.
Yeah, I agree. I was really high.
Well, I know you agree. You're the Ohio State fan.
I thought he had a really solid season, and as you said, when come the playoffs, he just turned into Peyton Manning. So that is. We're going to talk about a wide receiver when we get into wide receivers that played really well in the playoffs. So all of a sudden, he's a round one prospect. So why are we not doing that with Will Howard, who played incredible, the best out of anyone in the playoffs? Are we now not talking about him higher than what we should be? I see him a lot lower. I see him around that sort of 8, 9, 10 mark on people's big boards at quarterbacks. So I'm pushing him up the board a bit higher above all these guys. He set the completion percentage record at Ohio State, and I don't think that's an easy thing to do when you think about the quarterbacks, even over the last sort of 5 years that they've had there, and the names that have come out from there and gone into the NFL. For him to have the highest completion record, I think that's a really, really big thing to have in your locker. 43 starts as well. We said last year, having that experience and getting those snaps and playing more, you helps you when you go into the NFL to be day one ready. We've seen like the likes of Anthony Richardson, who didn't play much at college, had all the traits, but when he went to the NFL, it wasn't quite there. Same with Trey Lance as well. But, we have a Bo Nix that's played loads, and the experience helps and progresses you. I think that's the same with Will Howard. I think that's really, really good for him. And I was listening at the end of the season, I was listening to an interview, Chip Kelly and Ryan Day, and they were saying how they let Howard call the plays at the line. And I think that shows really good maturity, good IQ. And he got his team. They were saying that he got the team into the right play for that drive. So I think that's a really a tip, because we were saying Kyle McCord couldn't quite do it, but Will Howard's managed to fit in with that scheme and almost call plays himself, which he's going to be asked to do in the NFL. So I think that's really, really good. I think I'd call it a big arm. A lot of people saying that they're not overly impressed with his arm. I think he's got a big arm, and I think he's really, really sneaky athletic. I think if you watch the way he ran in the playoffs, he doesn't run the ball. I'd say it's more scrambles the ball. They're not designed run plays, are they? I've seen a hole, I've seen a gap, I'm going to pull it down, there's nothing on. Off he takes, and he's at 6'4" and 235 pounds. It's what you want, rushing at the speed he's got as well. A lot of people are going to talk about the game against Michigan. He had a head injury going into that game, and I feel like Ohio were trying to see what they got in the run game, trying to see what their O-line could do prior to the playoffs. So I'm not going to hold that game against him. And also not going to hold the slide he did against Oregon for the clock to run out. I think that's, it was very early in the season. So outside of that, can't fault him. Absolutely excellent. I think after the combine, there might be a bit more hype on him, and people might start talking about him a bit more. I thought they'd talk about him a bit more as soon as the season finished with how well it was. I would have had him higher than our next guy at number 5, Adam, but I wasn't brave enough. And
you're an idiot. That's
Quinn
all I can say.
Quinn Ewers, Texas Longhorns, 22 years old, 6'2", 210. Last year's stats, 3,472 yards, 31 touchdowns, 12 interceptions, and 2 rushing touchdowns. Adam, I think this guy he delivers big-time NFL throws. He's got great arm talent. He's good at throwing the ball on the move, all things that you kind of wanted. I think he's excellent and incredible when he's got time, when the O-line protects him. I think he's very, very good. Outside of that, when he gets rushed, when the defenses are good, he makes bad decisions, and the guy is always injured. This is another guy. There's a few of them on this list. Started at Ohio State, was a great 5-star recruit, Didn't quite beat out CJ Stroud, moved to Texas, played at Texas, big school. My worry is the decision making when he's rushed and the amount of injuries that he's sustained. I think he's injured both legs, his shoulder, his arm, his abdominal. So that is a big worry. I don't think he's managed to play through a season fully fit yet.
Do you want me to start on the positives or the negatives?
Start with the positives, please. And
Start with the positives. Okay.
There's got to be some, because he has got a good arm.
I agree with you. He has an NFL arm, strength and talent. I think he definitely does have an NFL arm. He's got timing, and I think his touch is actually not too bad. He has good ball placement, specifically on short throws. I think he does really, really well. There's not much after that. It's the biggest problem with him is that he's just incredibly inconsistent. That is the real issue with him. He will put out a few decent throws and you've got a touchdown, and then he will just absolutely shit the bed.
It's inconsistency in games as well, isn't it? So you'll watch one drive and you'll be, oh my God, this guy's phenomenal. And then the next drive you'll go, wait, what was that? So it's not like even inconsistencies of like game to game, like, oh, I was great against them, but poor against them, but great against them. I see the inconsistencies during the game, and it really frustrated me as well.
He doesn't work through his progressions very well. He's not elite when it comes to speed or acceleration. He's okay, but he's nothing special on that. He doesn't feel pressure at all. It's like it doesn't exist in his head. So he just gets hit so often, which is probably why he's been injured so much. He has pretty poor footwork. He doesn't, like, there's no drive. Again, a little bit like what I was saying about Will Howard. There's no push through with the feet. It sort of sails over, and that's an issue for him as well. Yeah, I mean, he wasn't even the best quarterback on his college team. Wow. So, I mean,
doesn't help when you've got Arch Manning on the team.
This is what I'm saying.
Highest paid college quarterback not to start.
I've got him as a 5th round pick, and I think I'm being nice.
Do you think you think he's 5th round talent? Do you think he'll go 5th round, or do you think that people will love the arm and see that it's an NFL arm, and all through the process of this last year and this year, people were very, very high on him. Do you think that that bias is going to be there in the back of the mind, and they're going to let the flaws slip? Or do you think he should have gone back for another year like Carson Beck did and try and prove himself at a different school?
I mean, he could have done, but I don't know if it would have got any better. I don't know if it's going to get any better. That's the problem. I just sort of think that he's in a quarterback class where it's not great. So maybe he feels he can get higher because of that. Mm-hmm. So I kind of understand why he's come out this year. I think a team will like him. I think they will. They'll look at him and they will see certain things: the strength, the talent of the arm, the timing, the touch, the ball placement. They'll look at that and go, I can work with that. I can do something with this kid. And so I think because of that, you probably will find that someone will go for him. I mean, as long as it's not Green Bay, I don't care really. But I mean, I don't think he's got it. I really don't. My comp for him was Kenny Pickett. And
he's not got tiny hands.
No, he's not got tiny hands. I will give you that. I didn't really bring the size of the hands into it that much. But the way that he plays, I feel like he's a bit Kenny
I think he's got a better arm than Kenny Pickett.
Yes, he does. Yeah, I mean, it's difficult, isn't it, to have a real comp on these guys? But I
didn't like Kenny Pickett at all coming out of college.
And I agree. I think you're right. I don't like this guy either. So I think you're spot on with the fact that it's Kenny Pickett.
Well,
I have nothing else to say about him. I don't think he's going to do much in the NFL.
No, I think physically he's a bit small as well. I think for what you'd want from.
Yeah, he's a bit light, isn't he?
Yeah. He doesn't play big either. He looks quite small on film as well. So yeah, and I think you're right. He relies too much on how good his arm is, and he doesn't drive the ball, which is frustrating. It's a good thing to say about him. Frustrating is literally what all that talent, and it's just not quite putting it all together, which is why he's not any higher on the list. Maybe should be
why he should be lower on the list.
Yeah, Will Howard should be above him, shouldn't he? I didn't want to be overly biased, but yeah, Will Howard's the best. Right, number 4. We're getting into the prospects now, the guys that we could see round 2, round 1. Number 4, Jalen Milroe of Alabama from the Crimson Tide, age 22, 6'2", 225 pounds. Last year had 2,844 yards, 16 touchdowns, 11 interceptions. He also rushed for 726 yards and 20 touchdowns. This guy is a bit of a special runner. I think you have to watch tape from 2023 and 2024 because 2023 he was with Saban still, and there was a lot of progression from the 2022 to 2023 in terms of what we saw from him. And then there was a bit of a down season this year in some aspects from him under Kalen DeBoer. I think that's because he was asked to play a different way, and it's like starting again. So I think you've got to go back and you've got to watch the 2 sets of film. Yeah, I'll let you take this one, and I'll add my 50 pence at the end.
I think he's a very, very impressive, physically gifted rusher. You're talking about someone who's 225 pounds. I think you're talking 4'3", 4'4" type speed. He's got strength. He's got twitch. He's a really, really tough competitor. He's not afraid of contact at all. I think he's got a really strong arm.
Big arm.
And another thing that he's got really going for him is that he senses rushers really, really well. So he's when he's got the ball in his hands and he's in the pocket, he completely has control in respect of, like, he knows exactly when it's caving in on him and he knows when to get out. And that's something that Quinn Ewers could probably learn from him. But this guy has the physical ability to just go and be gone. So he is great for that. He has a lot of issues as well. He doesn't process the first read. But, well, no, he does process the first read. He doesn't process anything after the first read. It is first read, no, I'm out of there. That is what he does all the time. He has some big accuracy issues. He's better than Anthony Richardson, but he still has big accuracy issues. He throws the ball so hard that if it's not 100% accurate, it could literally go anywhere. That's another problem that he has. And what's really interesting, when he rushes, he's great. When he scrambles and he tries to throw the ball, the accuracy actually gets worse. It literally could go anywhere. So that's a really big problem. He has massive fumble issues, like really big fumbling problems, where 13 fumbles in 2023 and then 9 more in 2024. So I know what you're saying about progression under Saban and stuff like that. And I think you're probably right. And he has dropped back a little bit. And that probably is to do with coaching. But something like ball security is still a massive problem, because he's running and the ball's like, it's just all over the place when he's running. There's arms everywhere. However, despite all of them problems, someone is going to love him. Someone is
Well,
going to come out and go, this kid is physically, he's Lamar Jackson.
I know he's not the height. A lot of people are comparing him to Anthony Richardson. He's not the height of Anthony Richardson.
No.
And he is more accurate than Anthony Richardson.
Yes.
Had more starts than Anthony Richardson. And he's had wins as well, which Anthony Richardson didn't have. So I think if you said to someone he's a more accurate Anthony Richardson, there's going to be loads of people out there that are like, I would like to take a punt on this guy. You know, he's a very intimidating back. I know he's only 6'2", but we were talking about Quinn Ewers and we're saying he looks small. Jalen Miro looks massive.
He looks big.
He's a big, big guy, stacked with muscles. Like you say, when he throws the ball, it's like it's going to pop the ball when he's throwing it. He's throwing it that fast. So I think there's going to be a lot of people that want to take a punt on him. I think the Pittsburgh Steelers would be silly not to take him. I felt like they missed out on Jalen Hurts back when they could have had him. I know they're not the same guy or the same comp, but you could get him later on and he could live up to what Jalen Hurts has become as a ceiling. He could get there. I'm not saying he's him now, but there's lots of potential with him and he could exceed expectation. But as long as you're going in as he played at a big school, he's got great rushing upside, he's got some accuracy issues, but we're going to take a punt on him and that's what you use him as, then I don't think you can fail. As long as you're not going, he's going to be the next face of our franchise, get rid of all our backups, this is what we want. Then I don't think you can fail by taking a punt on this guy. I think there's only upside to be had if you're bringing him in to see what he's got.
Yeah, I think you're probably right. Someone like the Steelers does make a lot of sense, given the fact that the way they're talking is that they want to keep one of the two guys in Russell Wilson or Justin Fields there. To have this guy sit behind one of them, especially Russell Wilson, I think would be very beneficial for him. I didn't have him I didn't comp him to Anthony Richardson. I actually had him comp to Malik Willis.
Yeah.
Just a slightly bigger version sort of thing. But I think that's what you're sort of dealing with here. And I've got him as third round. Someone will take him second, I think. I think he will be a second round pick. It's just that I don't think that the talent is third round at the moment, given all the problems that are there. But yeah, someone will go for him. And he has so much raw potential. But this is the difference between him and Anthony Richardson. He needs to be in a position where he is not starting, because the biggest problem that Anthony Richardson has had is that he literally went straight into starting, and it's a disaster.
You may as well call it straight from starting from high school. You know, he didn't really start in the college either. At least he's got the start of college. I heard that a similar comp. Someone saying middle of the season. He reminds me a lot of. Someone said a better Malik Willis, and when I heard it, I went, "Well, Malik Willis has had a great season at the Packers. He went in and won games. So I think if Malik Willis hadn't have been at the Titans and went somewhere else, then he might be a starter still. I don't know. So yeah, if that's what he can live up to as well, I think you've got someone good.
Yeah.
We're into the juicier part of it now. Someone who could go round one. There was talk of him going round one. There's been day 2 marked for him for quite a long time, but he's getting a lot of hype now, and that is Jackson Dart from Ole Miss. 21 years old. He's the youngest of all the prospects. 6'2", 225 pounds. This year he had 4,279 yards, 29 touchdowns, 6 interceptions. He also had 495 rushing yards and 3 touchdowns. I'm very, very high on this guy. I've got quite a lot of notes on him. Adam, let's compare. What have you got him? Because I think I'm higher on him than probably what you are.
I do like him. I think he looks really good. I think he's a really good athlete. He's got great arm talent and really good arm strength. His mechanics are good. That's definitely his sort of like fundamentals are pretty good. He's also very accurate. I'll throw out a comp now. He feels very Baker Mayfield to me. There's just something about him. He's just. I feel like he's up for a fight and he enjoys getting hit. He's one of them weird people who enjoys getting hit, and he just. This is what I say when I was saying earlier about other guys where I'm like, you need to be good at both. You need to be able to rush. You need to be able to pass as well. This is the guy who is, and he does have both sides of it. He's got really good rushing ability. He can be a pocket passer if he needs to be. He does lack some experience. He is, as you said, the youngest. No experience under center at all. That's not his fault. They just didn't play it. So that's something that is obviously you can't. I can't really come out and say it's a criticism of him because he wasn't asked to do it. So there is that. I feel like he bails out of clean pockets too quickly. Sometimes I don't get me wrong. The rushing is great, but I think there are times when if he just waits a bit longer, he has to throw will open up for him. And again, I think that's something that will come with experience and probably NFL coaching. He does step into pressure a little bit. That's something that was noticeable. His spatial awareness is a little bit of a concern. But all in all, I just think he's because he's 21, he's got so much potential. He really could be something good. And I actually like him more than one of the others that we will talk about later, because I think he has the all-round game and he has that potential to really kick on. I had Baker Mayfield. I had a bit of Bo Nix, I think, as well. He kind of reminds me of. I think he's probably. I've written round 2, but I do really like him, and I do think he's worth a round 1 pick. But I think you're probably talking back of the first. But yeah, he's potentially very, very good, and he can do everything you want him to do.
Yeah, I had similar things. Solid athlete, gets the ball really quick out of his hands. Great leverage. What I really did like about him, I've watched a load of Ole Miss this year. I literally watched a load. You'll find a common thing. I've got a lot of Ole Miss players on my top 10s across the board from all positions because I think I just watched loads of them this year. They were great to watch. He led the FBS in yards per attempt at 10.7. I think that is, a great thing. I don't think he lacked experience. He's got 41 starts, 21 years old, 41 starts. He did start at USC as a high recruit. He moved because they brought in Caleb Williams. So he was like, I'm out of here. Went to go and play with Lane Kiffin, and he's been fantastic at Ole Miss ever since. He's also completed passes over 25 yards. He did 53. That was second in history behind Joe Burrow. And we know what Joe Burrow did in that year and what he's done in the NFL. We've talked a lot about people who couldn't go through their reads. I felt like he went through the first 2 reads very, very well. And then after that, I think that's when it all started to fall apart. It's like he forgot how to play after he'd gone through his first 2 reads. And then he was like, oh, no, it's not there. I do think that it can progress. He's 21 years old. If you can go through 2, you can get to 3. We're talking about guys who can't get to 2. So, that's something I think he needs to get better on. I do think a lot of people will say he's not got an elite arm and he's not an elite athlete, but I think he's very, very good at both. So, yeah, I had a mix between Bo Nix and Drake May. I can see a little bit of both of them in him, which were both in last year's draft and both had success as well. So I think he's got a couple of traits from both of those guys. So I think there is a really high upside on this guy working out and being good. And I think leadership and the way he was with his team as well really shine. So I think he's going to interview well. I think people are going to love him. I think he's going to do well at the combine when he's talking to people as well. And I think his stock may rise closer we get to the draft.
Yeah, I think that's pretty fair. And I'm not sure someone takes him in the first round.
I think someone might.
You think someone might trade up
to the bottom?
Yeah.
Just so they get him.
For the extra year.
I think if you sit on it and wait, then he might be gone. Number 2 is a lot of people's number 1, but I've got him at number 2. Cam Ward from Miami Hurricanes, age 22. Height 6'2", 223 pounds. Last year's stats off the chart: 4,313 yards, 39 touchdowns, 7 interceptions. Rushed for 204 yards, 4 touchdowns. Great arm. Played exceptionally well from behind in a lot of games this year, which I think is a big tick. I think people will look at attributes. But if you watch the tape and see those games where he was behind and they could have lost and it was all down to him that they won, I think that's a big tick. Tough guy. And I think he's got a really good story. I know you spoke about Ray Davis before and his story. I think Cam Ward's got a great story, a 0-star recruit. And then, I think that was mainly because the high school he went to, they just wanted to run the ball. He couldn't showcase what he did well, and no one wanted him. Built his way up, managed to go to Washington. I think if you watch the Washington tape and the Miami tape, you get a great feel for this guy. Big word everyone's going to say, you've got it on your paper, I've got it on my paper, gunslinger. So, Adam, I don't think he's polished, and I don't think his footwork's there. But he's very calm and has a great arm, and there's lots to like about this guy. I think he's got a very high ceiling, but he's not polished, and it's not, well, none of these guys are, but it's not polished, and there's areas that I really worry about him going into the NFL.
Yeah, I think that's probably pretty fair. I would still have him as my number 1, but I think what you're saying is pretty fair. He's got the arm, he's got the talent, the strength. He's an elite thrower on the run, absolutely elite thrower on the run. He has the touch for a deep ball as well, and the strength for it. He can run, he can scramble as well. Both things he's very good at. Very, very confident guy. Very good leadership skills from everything that you read and hear about him. I think he's got really, really good pocket feel. He knows exactly when it's falling apart, and he has the ability to rush and get out of there. So, yeah, I think he has got everything that you want from someone who has the potential to do something. I don't think he's a number 1 pick. I really don't. I understand that there's a quarterback tax and all that sort of stuff, but even with that, I still don't believe he's the number 1 pick. But he's definitely a first round pick. My negatives for him: he does too many crossbody throws, and that's an issue. And just kind of what you were saying about footwork, but I would just have it as an overall thing on everything. He needs to develop his technique on everything a little bit. I saw him and thought, I watch him every week. He reminds me of Jordan Love.
Oh, really?
Yeah. He loves to just... He's a gunslinger, and he will end up giving away interceptions, like a decent chunk of interceptions
in his own red zone.
Yeah. Well, wherever, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter where it is. He'll have a go. But the point is but he has that confidence that even if he gets it wrong, he will just keep going and keep going and keep going. And you can just see it in him that with that, the crossbody throws is another thing that Jordan Love has, which is a problem. And you just sort of think, I can see this guy as Jordan Love. However, Jordan Love got to sit for 3 years and develop.
Mm-hmm.
And this guy probably isn't going to get that. And that's where I think it's all going to fall apart for him, which is a real shame, because I think he could potentially have something here. But yeah, I think he's a round one. He's definitely a round one guy. I think he's probably a top 5 pick because of him being a quarterback. I just don't believe he's the number 1 pick.
Yeah, it's interesting. He was going to go into the draft last year. We had him in our top 10. We were about to do the show and we found out he was returning last minute.
Yeah.
And we had to take him out of it and find someone else to put in. And last year, I think he was round 3 and he was said, go back, preview stock, come out again. And he did do that. There's one thing that Jordan Love does do that this guy doesn't. Cam Ward has the inability to throw a check down.
That is true.
He never checks the ball down, and he's always looking for that downfield pass. So that does worry me a lot. That you say it's confidence. He does think he can throw every single time. I'm not checking it down. I can get it down the field. I think he relies on that arm a bit too much, and that's when it all starts to go a bit sideways. I think he does need to sit for a year. I think you're right, but very, very high ceiling. I've been high on him. When I knew he was going back, I wanted Ohio to take him, and they took Will Howard instead, and he went to Miami. So I am really high on this guy. I do really like him. I just think that the guy I've got at 1, who we all now know because he's not been said, I just think he's more day 1 ready than Cam Ward, which is why I've got him at 1. And that's the only thing that splits them for me in terms of prospect. I think Shedeur could start in the NFL day 1. I think Cam Ward needs to sit and polish those skills up a little bit more, whereas I think Shedeur's skills are already quite refined and good. So we'll move on to him now, as we've just spoke about him. That is Shedeur Sanders from Colorado, 23 years old, 6'2", 215 pounds. Last season, 4,134 yards, 37 touchdowns, 10 interceptions, 4 touchdowns. Adam, 74% completion rate, great in the pocket, good anticipation, good touch, super highly accurate, great on the move, good at scrambling. I wouldn't say he's a great runner. He's a great scrambler. Colorado, take into consideration when you did your notes, I hope you did, Colorado's O-line was horrendous. Colorado were horrendous to start off with. They won 1 game. They brought in Dion. Shedeur came with Dion, and the O-line was horrendous. I think he got sacked 43 times in his first year, which was, the next person got sacked like 20 odd times. So it was nearly double. Didn't improve a lot better in the second year. So behind a very, very bad O-line. I think with the accuracy, with the anticipation, with how good he is in the pocket, with the touch, that's why I think he's more NFL ready. I think when you play behind a bad O-line for the year and put up 4,134 yards and 37 touchdowns in a team that's awful, outside of him and Travis Hunter and maybe Jimmy Horn, there's no other NFL players on that offense whatsoever. So I think it's very impressive what he's done. I do think that because of that, and because he thinks he's a superstar, held onto the ball way too long. But I think that can be coached out of him. If you can coach that out of him, if he goes to a team that, is just of NFL caliber, I think he won't need to hold on to the ball that long as well. I think they'll teach that out of him. He'll have better players around him to give the ball to. His O-line will be better. And I just think when you've handled that much like bad stuff in college, and you've turned an irrelevant college team into nearly a playoff team, that's like going to the NFL. That is, you're going to go to a bad team and you're going to hopefully turn them good. So I think he's already faced that, whereas a lot of these guys on this list that we've spoke about, SEC guys, big schools, they haven't faced like the adversity that he has of being in a really, really bad organisation. So that is why I've got him at number 1. Before you now tell me I'm an idiot and I shouldn't have him at number 1, that is why I've got him at number 1.
I think it's very much dependent on what you want and what you feel is where you want to go. I think that Sanders mechanically is incredibly impressive. He's got a great fluid throwing motion that is incredibly accurate. Brilliant on short and middle throws. Really, really good ball security. I think he's very good at that, and he has really good decision making when he's got the time. And I think he's a tough player as well. I think he's very much up for that, and he's willing to take on the hits, and he is very good at that. You're going to come out and tell me no, you're not going to. You already have. You've told me about the O-line excuses that everyone gives Sanders. I understand that the O-line and the players on the O-line are not NFL caliber, and that he will be behind a better O-line than what he has been. The only thing I would say is in every single game, he's probably going to be going up against a stronger D-line than what he has done as well. So that kind of doesn't really... It all kind of equates, as it is, sort of thing. There are some really big problems that he has that I understand that people are going to say the O-line and that's what has caused it. But there are some really easy fixes here that he didn't do. His pocket presence doesn't exist. He just gets hit. He doesn't feel them coming. I'm sorry, you can feel someone coming for you. Like, if you've got that, and he just didn't have it. The O-line can be rubbish, but you can still feel that happening. He drops back way too much.
Yeah.
That is a massive problem. And, he's got a decent arm, but he hasn't. It's almost like he's handicapping himself because he's dropping back so far. He got 52 sacks in 2024. And you can come out and say it's the O-line. But the other thing is, you can throw the ball away. You can do that. It is allowed, sort of thing. This is the problem. There's some real sort of basics here that are just sort of like, you can solve these problems really, really easily. And in fairness, maybe once he's in the NFL and he gets some coaching.
And a running back.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, that's fair as well. But maybe if he gets some coaching that's different from what he's been getting, then maybe you might see improvements in that and you might see a little bit more from him. But because of these things, it just feels like you've got a guy here who's very accurate and has the ability to sort of like, ping balls in short and middle distances, but doesn't really give you anything else. And that's the problem. That's where it's almost like, if you look at it purely from a tape point of view, from what you see, I just see a guy I see Teddy Bridgewater. That's who I see. And as far as I'm concerned, that doesn't get you a Super Bowl, which is the point, isn't it? Really. I think the floor is amazing. The ceiling is not Jackson Dart. The ceiling is not Cam Ward, and that's the problem.
I think when you're doing a top 10 prospects, I think the high floor has got to be taken into account, that he is
absolutely
probably the most day one ready of all these guys.
Yeah, and I think that's fair because of the accuracy and because of that. I agree with you. I think that is fair. We
can't live in a world where we're going, wow, Cam Ward is going to be the next best thing. Jackson Dart will be better than Baker Mayfield. We've got to go on what we've seen, and I think you've got to be the number one if your floor's really high. I think that's the safest option, and coaching could help him, and better players around him will help.
Yeah, I mean that is a fair thing to come out and say. I think you have to take into account the fact that the potential ceiling a little bit, and I might be wrong, but I just don't see it with this guy, and I think he gets boosted up by the name as well.
There is a lot of people that say if you put a generic name, put Smith on his back, put Jones on his back, or whatever.
Yeah.
Is this guy as hyped up and as high on the board, and is he talked about as much, and is his story told as much what he's achieved? Would we have watched any of Colorado? Would we have known that what he's achieved behind that poor team if his name wasn't Sanders? I don't know. But there is lots of things to like. I think you say Teddy Bridgewater. I think you're talking about ceiling, but I'm talking about attributes. I think there's a lot of Joe Burrow and CJ Stroud-esque attributes in there. And I think that's something to like. I'm not saying he is them, clearly. But the fact that he can do very similar things to them, we know works in the NFL.
Yeah. I think, like I said, I think a lot of it is fair. I think that he is impressive. I just don't think you're going to win anything with him.
Well, I'm just glad I managed to talk you around to saying I think that's fair. I think he is impressive. So
no, I'm not a complete hater on the guy. I just like I say, I don't think the ceiling is there. I think there are other guys in this draft, and to be honest, that's not really saying a lot because these guys are not fantastic. But I think there are other people in this draft that I would rather take the chance on.
Yeah, well, that is our top 10. What comment on it? Tell us what you think. See if we're wrong. See if we're mad. See if there's someone you like. See if there's someone
we're definitely wrong and mad. We know that much.
Have we missed someone from the list? Is there someone else you really, really like that didn't make our top 10? Let us know. We will be going through all the prospects. We will have running backs, wide receivers, tight ends, all of the above coming up very soon. This is our quarterbacks. But till then, keep it with the franchise tag and see you again very soon.